History is rhyming again, so we're gonna name that tune. Thank you for joining me on my channel. My name is Hazel the Heretic. Today we're gonna be crocheting while we talk about the world and the way it is, and then my theories about how America and where we are politically is actually pretty equivalent or rhyming with the Roman Empire. Now, this is a theory that has gone on for a long time, like way before me. So I'm really going to dive in specifically into the First Triumvirate. Now, that specifically is Caesar, big Roman dude, and Crassus, the rich, and Pompey the Great. Now, those were the first three that joined together, and while that was happening, they very much started the fall of Rome, and I feel like I'm seeing a very similar group of three men getting together to not really start the fall of America, but like expedite the collapse. I guess this may be the way to say it. Now, these are all my theories. I'm not a historian. I'm just someone who's looking at the history around them and only learned about Roman and American history in my Christian classes. So that's like the one thing I got information on. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Now, I don't know if any of these are actually what's going to happen. I can't predict the future. These is just an interesting way of looking at the situation that we are in today comparatively to situations that happened a long time ago, and hopefully with a better outcome. Now, before I start my theories, who do you think it is? Who do you think the modern day Julius Caesar of Rome, who do you think the modern day Pompey the Great is, or modern day Crassus, who was incredibly rich in Rome? I had a lot of different politicians, billionaires, and just celebrities in general that I thought could be all those different areas. And I'm going to go into a little bit to the history of how it came to be, how the First Triumvirate came together, and why it weakening an already very weak Roman system really started the true collapse of Rome, in my opinion. Please subscribe and like the video if you like it, and let me know all of your opinions down below. I want to know who you think Julius Caesar is, because I'm a little sad about my decision. Now, first, we're going to get into a little bit of history. We're going to talk about the Roman First Triumvirate. Now, that was in 60 to 53 BC, so a very long time ago. And the First Triumvirate was a political alliance between Julius Caesar, the Marcus Crassus, who was very rich, and Pompey the Great. Now, all of them were noblemen. That was an interesting difference that we have nowadays, is that you don't have to be a nobleman to get elected. But let's be honest, what poor person gets elected to office? I mean, don't get me wrong, like, it can happen, and there are people that are. It's just 9 times out of 10 our politicians are all like rich people that can't really know what regular people are going through. So that's a mess. Anyway, these three men, they formed an alliance, and that alliance was seen as like this great political coming together. It wasn't an official alliance. It wasn't something that was like an official event. It was more about a ideology and a partnership between these main leaders. Now, we can see that pretty similar in some of the main leaders we have in American politics. Now, they all came together during the final years of Rome. So Rome was already on the decline. It had already started to weaken, but they all had specific characteristics that they're very well known for, and that really led to them being able to, I don't know, mess it up this bad. Now, Julius Caesar is probably the most well-known of the three. He was an ambitious military leader. He was kind of someone who was seen as coming from the side. Like, he didn't go the traditional route. He was, a little bit more swaying the people. And he was very charismatic. He was able to get the people on his side. And he held a lot of cultural power and political impact. We have the next one, which is Pompey the Great. Now, Pompey the Great was a military leader, and he had a ton of influence, especially over the military. So he was really helpful when it came to military use. Now, modern day, that is still happening with like military contracts and like specific ways that we are able to still bomb people in the Middle East. Like, we still make a lot of money as a country off of war. It's a great moneymaker in the US, unfortunately. Now, the third person was Marcus Linnæus Crassus. He was the wealthiest man in Rome. And he used his fortune and his political connections to try to gain more power. Now, he wasn't quite as charismatic as Julius Caesar or quite as politically affiliated as Pompey the Great, but he did kind of come in as, you know, the kind of smaller of the other two when it came to political power, but he had so much money that is power alone. The triumvirate wasn't an official institution. It really bypassed a lot of checks and balances and was incredibly concerning. Eventually, their alliance broke down and they all ended up dying in different battles and things. Now that I've told you a little bit about the history, let me tell you a little bit about my theory. Now remember, this is all my personal opinion. I'm just looking at our modern day politics and I'm thinking, you look like you, and I'm gonna say it. What if you call a spade? Like, let's do it. So as I look, I really see a modern day power struggle. Like, clearly America's had like so many issues for so long. So it's not like it's new. Just like the issues with Rome weren't new when the First Triumvirate came into place. They'd been falling apart for a while. Rome wasn't built in a day, and Rome did not fall in a day. So neither will America. And I think that obviously, you know, situations are different from different times, but I think a lot of things in history rhyme and they just change a little bit over time depending on what the situation allows. Like, we have globalization and technology now, so the way we might react to a similar situation might be different and have super different outcomes. But all things considered, I still think my theory is pretty good. So let me know what you think in the comments. You can tell me if you think I guessed wrong about any of the people. I really like to know if you think there's a better person, because this is all my opinion and I can definitely be wrong. Now, the first person is Julius Caesar, who, womp womp, is Trump. Trump is our Julius Caesar, which is the Julius Caesar that we don't want, but we deserve as Americans. Jeez. Now, Caesar, he was a big populist figure, and he rose by bypassing the traditional ways, just kind of like how Trump did. I know that Trump was like rich, but he seemed to come from the outside, just not being a traditional political figure. And because of that, was able to gain the general like of the populace, even just for being an outsider, just for being different and pushing against the status quo, even if it, in my opinion, wasn't actually pushing that far against it. Caesar also was incredibly ambitious, and he would use his very strong charisma to kind of get his way in a similar way that Trump does, like fixing my crochet. This is all stuff I will edit out for you. Don't worry. Just actually wanting the crochet to turn out well too. So I'm fixing that all out. This is what I'm making. They're so cute. They're little paws. And they're little stocking paws. So this is what I'm making for my cats. They're little stocking paws. Oh, I didn't do them wrong. And I still need to sew them together. But this is like the two sides of them. I'm just learning to crochet. I'm very, very new, but I'm enjoying it. And these are the little paws. And then I got to sew them together. And that's going to be their stockings for Christmas. So I have two cats and I need to do the second one. So that's why I'm doing both. Plus, I think that people like videos more when you're just kind of doing something. I think maybe when someone's staring at you in the camera and being like, hi, here's a bunch of intense opinions, it can be kind of intense. So crochet it is. Trump is a little bit more like Caesar than we would like to admit. He definitely has that charisma with his crowd. And like when he puts on shows, I feel like they're more shows than like rallies, but they very much rally the population. And as much as I don't like him and I don't find him charismatic at all, clearly a lot of people do. He also challenged the norms in like a lot of different ways, especially when it came to politics. Just being able to like speak your mind and not pussyfoot around everything. Like, I think that a lot of politicians were very used to the status quo, and he very much shook it up and said things you weren't supposed to say. And he's a horrible person. I hate him so much, but it is different. And I think people just were also horrible, but they also just wanted something different. And I think that's why he's our Julius Caesar. Ugh. Now, Trump is more authoritarian and less traditional Republican, so he did buck that status quo. Just as Caesar's actions led to the fall of Rome, I think that the weakening of an already incredibly weak government is going to do the same in America. We're already at a place where money is equivalent to free speech. Thanks, Reagan. But now with like things like the Department of Education being like changed, potentially shut down, with, you know, the more privatization of school, of prisons, of media, the banning of books, it's definitely making the government even weaker than it already is, even though it's already weak. So it's going to make it very easy for people with a lot of money to swoop in and do whatever they want. Like, the checks and balances, I don't know if they were ever truly there, but I at least felt like there was an illusion before. The next person on the list would be Pompey the Great. Another one of those we get what we deserve, not what we want situations. I believe that is Elon Musk, unfortunately. Unfortunately. So Pompey was an incredibly powerful general. He had a lot of both political and military leadership and power throughout the country. That was like really his biggest thing, was his military leading. And though at first he had an alliance with Caesar, when they ended up eventually fighting because, you know, all these divas in one room, it's not big enough personalities for all of them. No way. Elon Musk had a lot of hands in different government contracts. He has very much popped up next to Trump during the 2024 election. He did support him before the 2024 election, but he hasn't really made himself as centered in the election or in the political sphere, not political sphere, but specifically Trump's political sphere, until 2024. Now, he's also done a lot of other things to try to sway people politically, especially with his, I don't know, like buying of Twitter or X or whatever he wants to call it. And it's very interesting to see him work very hard, especially with SpaceX and Tesla, to get those government contracts. Like, oh my gosh, like that really bad underground Uber thing that was in LA, where their company, Tesla, was specifically had like an underground Uber for Tesla pickup thing that you could do. And it was just a bunch of cars going down like a white road, and it looked so dangerous. I don't know what happened with that, but there's no way a train wouldn't have been safer and gotten more people there. He definitely did not get that because he was the best option, in my opinion. Now, we have clearly seen Elon Musk fail several times in public, i.e. the Cybertruck that I always see driving around. He is trying to use that power, that I would say like kind of a mix of like political, cultural, and money power, but also very much in a militaristic way like Pompey did, where he's very much getting defense contracts and making a ton of money off of that. It's crazy. Elon Musk is also a disruptor. He is, as much as I hate to say that because I think he would love it. He is a disruptor, just like Pompey was. Pompey was very much about disrupting the way that like the world was going and all new innovation. The last one that we have is Crassus the Rich. Now, there are a couple people this can be. I kind of was going back and forth between two people specifically. You can tell me if you think I got it wrong in the comments, because it definitely could go either way. I think it's going to be Jeff Bezos. And hear me out. I know he's not the number one wealthiest person. He's just the second wealthiest person in the world. But he definitely is trying to get in a more political view. He's not really right now, and he's also not super well liked. But he has the money to influence politics in extreme ways. Crassus was the richest man in Rome, and he used his wealth and political influence to gain more and more power for himself. Sound like people we know? Now, Bezos doesn't only have tons of money. He also controls a couple of medium conglomerates, and because of that, has a little bit more control over the major media. And you can see that nowadays with most media networks. I feel like almost everybody is sponsored by some rich billionaire that like doesn't want them to cover something about the world. That's why I think like private journalism is so important, and I really appreciate everyone that does it. Bezos makes more in one day than I will in my entire life. Like, he is that rich. It's ridiculous. He makes 191.8 million a day, or 7.99 million per hour. I'm probably not going to make that in my life. You're probably not going to make that in your life. That is insane. He did not earn that money. That's crazy. But just like back in Rome, it's the rich billionaires fighting against the rich billionaires, and then the people are just kind of like pawns and spectators. At least that's what it's been in the past. And what I'm hoping is going to happen is that's not going to happen in modern day, because we have more tools to hopefully join us together, both in community and in resistance. But it's complicated. It really is. Just like Rome, we have become incredibly influenced by money. There is so much, like, in this society, money is power. And that was true in Rome too. They very much slowly disintegrated the system from something that had checks and balances to things that had less and less over time. And even though it was happening before this first triumvirate, just like in America, we've been having issues since we first existed, okay? But I do see us coming across historical events that seem to be rhyming with this one, and I wonder if they'll have similar outcomes. Let me know what you think in the comments below, because do you think globalization and like technology really gives us the ability as people to organize, so maybe we'll be able to come up against it? Or is history doomed to repeat itself? Now, the reason that I really kind of focused in on these three is because of a recent Mar-a-Lago meeting that had happened between Trump and Jeff Bezos, along with Elon Musk being not so happy about it. Now, Elon and Jeff have had issues for so long. They hate each other. They want each other's money. Yeah, sounds like money is the way to happiness, dude. Sounds like something we should all really go for. Another thing I wanted to mention that is a very interesting connection between Rome and current day America is that we both basically say that Christianity is our official religion. Now, Rome didn't do that until the end, but it seems like America's kind of fallen in that same suit of like, hey, we're a Christian nation now. You know, it's getting, I don't know, people are less Christian in general, but very politically it's Christian. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I don't know, I live in the South, so everyone here is Christian, but it might just be me. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you watching this video on all my theories. Please like and subscribe if you would like to see more videos about all the thoughts in my crazy brain. And please let me know what you think. What are your theories? Do you see the future happening differently? Do you think it'll happen similarly, just different people? I'd love to know what you think in the comments. Do you feel like you've seen the rise of the First American Triumvirate? And as always, remember to keep laughing through the apocalypse.